The following radio program you're about to listen to is provided to you, the listener, by Inked Geek Studios. Get this and other great shows at inkedgeekstudios.com.
Good morning, Vietnam!
I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
I feel the need for speed.
Roads? Where we're going, we don't need roads.
Snakes. Why did it have to be snakes?
Badges? We don't need no badges. I don't have to show you any stinking badges.
I don't have to show you any stinking badges, and welcome, dear listeners, to another edition of Movie Busters. I am Brandon, and I have cack in my throat. Better. Joined always, our host and founding father, original OG IG, the man himself, our host. Let's drag it out a little longer. A little bit longer. Who could it be? Who do you think it could be? It's Nate Ward. Nate, how are you?
I don't know.
So far tonight, I've danced all up on you. Things have happened. Anyway, we're here. He can't say a word. He's awestruck by that intro. So this week, we have an excellent film featuring our one and only favorite, Nicolas Cage.
Yes.
Yes, there he is. He came in.
Hello.
He jumped in. Hello.
I am here.
Hello. Welcome.
Hello.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I tell you, the people that got in Twitch early definitely had a
You saw a show. I mean, I'm sweating. I didn't even do anything.
Yeah, so that's why we always encourage everyone, if you listen to our shows and you're available, watch them live, because you never know what's going to happen. Yeah, anyway, Ashley says we're moving up in the world if you're doing the intro.
Well, I'm good for one thing.
So this week we watched Adaptation with Nicolas Cage. We never really started doing this with this podcast. It's only episode 4, but we are going to spoil it and play a bunch of clips from the movie, as we have done with past episodes of other movies that we've done. So it is streaming currently on HBO, or you can buy it or rent it on Amazon or iTunes. I know on iTunes, where I had purchased it, it was like $13. So well worth it. It's a good movie.
So you did find it to be worth it?
I did, yeah. I have spent more on movies that were worth less. Mm-hmm. It's got Cage in it.
I know. I thought you might like it.
So it's got dual Cage.
It does it that. A lot of masturbatory Cage in that movie.
Indeed. So I think a good way to start this episode is to start off with Cage's opening monologue. It really sets the tone for the movie.
I wondered if you were going to do that as the intro for the show this week.
If it wasn't a minute and a half long, I would have.
Right.
But I figured we would at least come in and say hello to people first. So, yeah. So we'll knock out that opening monologue, which is 1 minute and 32 seconds long. So hang out with us and listen. It really does kind of define his character for the rest of the movie and gives you a really good idea of what you're in for the rest of the movie, and kind of what you're dealing with his character and him talking to himself and the constant voiceover and things like that. So here's 1.5 minutes of Nicolas Cage.
Do I have an original thought in my head? My bald head. Maybe if I were happier, my hair wouldn't be falling out. Life is short. I need to make the most of it. Today's the first day of the rest of my life. I'm a walking cliche. I really need to go to the doctor, have my leg checked. There's something wrong. A bump. The dentist called again. I'm way overdue. If I stopped putting things off, I would be happier. All I do is sit on my fat ass. If my ass wasn't fat, I would be happier. I wouldn't have to wear these shirts with the tails out all the time. Like that's fooling anyone. Fat ass. I should start jogging again. 5 miles a day. Really do it this time. Maybe rock climbing. I need to turn my life around. What do I need to do? I need to fall in love. I need to have a girlfriend. I need to read more, improve myself. What if I learned Russian or something? Or took up an instrument? I could speak Chinese. I would be the screenwriter who speaks Chinese and plays the oboe. That would be cool. I should get my hair cut short. Stop trying to fool myself and everyone else and think I have a full head of hair. How pathetic is that? Just be real, confident. Isn't that what women are attracted to? Men don't have to be attractive. But that's not true, especially these days. Almost as much pressure on men as there is on women these days. Why should I be made to feel I have to apologize for my existence? Maybe it's my brain chemistry. Maybe that's what's wrong with me. Bad chemistry. All my problems and anxiety can be reduced to a chemical imbalance or some kind of misfiring synapses. I need to get help for that. But I'll still be ugly, though. Nothing's gonna change that.
So I think that really sets the tone for the entire movie. I think we can do a tailspin from that quote alone. I don't know about you or a lot of our listeners, but I think that that's the way a lot of us spend our days thinking. I know for me, it's a constant barrage of those kind of statements and self-deprecation.
For sure. And, you know, I'm excited to kind of wrap it up with the second to last quote when we get to that too, because there's that interesting...
Yeah, it bookends the whole thing.
The conflict between the way he thinks and the way his brother thinks, which slowly kind of breaks down throughout the movie. But no, it really gives a set to the character. And having him come off as being... It's interesting because he's a writer. He writes screenplay. And he's good at it. Like, there are several spots throughout the movie where it is addressed that he is not only a talented what's the term?
Screenwriter?
Is it just yeah, I can think tonight. It's not 10 o'clock on a Sunday. He's a talented screenwriter, and like, he's written good things. And when his brother winds up writing his first screenplay and submits it, and he reads it and it's good, like, his agent says, you got two talented people, twin screenwriters. Like, it's referenced several times throughout the movie that he is very talented. So it's interesting. And I almost am a little disappointed that we don't get more information about that. I mean, obviously it's based around Charlie Kaufman. And if you're curious about that, you can kind of look into it and see how talented he was. But based off how they focus on the self-deprecation so much in the movie, I'm amazed that they didn't touch more on that and touch more on how talented he truly is, and the screenplays that he has completed, and they just focus on the self-deprecation throughout the whole movie.
Right. And we should say that this film opens with him on the set of Being John Malkovich, which is an actual real film that was really good, and we will probably do on this show. It's one that he wrote as well.
Oh, I'd love to.
So I agree. I think we should do a brief synopsis of the film. It's screenwriter Charlie Kaufman. He is adapting a book called The Orchid Thief, and essentially he runs into a writer's block because it has no driving force. It's a book about flowers and disappointment, and nothing really changes. Usually you have an antagonist and a protagonist. Somebody falls in love, somebody learns a lesson. That doesn't happen here. So it's about him trying to find his way through that mire and create a sellable story. And in real life, as shown in the movie, what actually happens is he does the cardinal sin of writing himself into his own work, and then that becomes what the screenplay is about. It goes from there. But again, like Nate said, it's more about his character versus his brother's character, and just those two types of id going toe-to-toe. Now, you'll see very early on... Yeah, it's adaptation, Corey. You'll see very early on in the film that he's annoyed by his brother's very existence. And at first you think it's mostly justified because he's squatting in his house and not working or doing anything, and he's, passive-aggressively holier than thou. But as time goes on, all of that changes. Yet, I notice a lot of people aren't getting notifications for our shows if we're going to reference the chat room. That happens to a lot. I get a lot of text messages asking if the show started or not.
Do people have them, because the notifications are off by default. They have to manually be turned on. And sometimes that happens with Twitch. Twitch can be weird sometimes. It's just it's a thing. We start at the same time every week. Pay attention to our schedule, Corey. Yeah. But yeah, no. So his brother, it's interesting because he is the complete opposite of him, and it's like
let me ask you this: between the two of them, who would you identify more with, Charlie or Donald? Donald being his twin brother.
I think some elements of both.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like I am very much of the self-deprecating. You know, I think a lot of people are to a point, right? But then you also have the whole like just run with an idea and go with it and hope it works, which is what his brother did. So I mean, if I had to pick one and not kind of break it up, you know, as to actually answer your question, I would probably say Charlie.
Yeah, I would say Charlie too. I'm definitely one to. So the scene where he's talking about the nuts and bolts of writing with his brother, and his brother is talking about all of these tropes, which I know I say a lot on this podcast, but all of these things in writing that you just shouldn't do.
Right.
And his brother's like, no, don't do that. Don't say that. Don't say pitch. Don't do this. Don't do that. I'm very much of that ilk where I'm just an asshole about things that I'm passionate about, and I correct people, and I shouldn't.
Right.
Moreover, I'm also timid and self-loathing, and I tend to fantasize and fall in love and then go home and masturbate and be sad about it like he does in this film. Moreover, more often than not. Yes? Do you find that to be true?
I never find myself sad about masturbating.
Not even afterward? Tears, tears, tears.
Not typically.
Good 99 tears.
So anyway, back to the movie. The movie has a great cast.
The movie has an amazing cast.
Yeah, it's so we're seeing Chris Cooper for the second time.
Yes.
Yeah, and then obviously we've got Nicolas Cage doing the dual roles, and we didn't mention that. So Nicolas Cage plays Charlie and Donald. So he does. It was very well done, and I think it's appropriate for me being such a Nicolas Cage lover that the first Nicolas Cage movie we get dual Nicolas Cage.
That's why I picked it.
But we also get Nicolas Cage. People who typically love Nicolas Cage as an actor and his style might be a little disappointed by the movie.
Yeah, I had read that. Are you alluding to this?
That he's not Nicolas Cage.
Well, he purposely went against all of his acting instincts.
Right, and he listened purely to the director, right. And
the only time I thought we got Nicolas Cage was, I know you clipped it. There were a couple instances where he's at the tape recorder.
Oh, and just going nuts.
Yeah, that was the only Nicolas Cage that I saw.
Right. But he's... Yeah, again, he's very not Nicolas Cage. He does a great job. He does great in both roles, and especially in the scenes where he's essentially talking to himself. He does great bouncing back and forth, and obviously they just filmed the two separate scenes and spliced them together.
Right.
But it's still, I mean, at that point he's just acting by himself.
Right.
So it does show his abilities and his skill of acting. But yeah, so we've got Nicolas Cage. As far as the author of the book that he's trying to adapt into the movie, we've got Meryl Streep, who plays Susan Orlean, Orlean, who has a very interesting character, and her and Chris Cooper are responsible for probably what I thought was one of the biggest twists that I've seen in a while, because I certainly did not expect the ending of this movie.
No, definitely not. And we should note that Orlean and LaRoche, Chris Cooper and Meryl Streep's characters, are... The film is spliced almost in two, and they don't come together until the end, but you get a lot of flashbacks. So you're essentially watching two different stories, but what ends up happening is that they become the screenplay that he's writing. So where you're lacking in drama and purpose in the screenplay that he's trying to write in real time, you're watching it unfold in the movie.
Right.
We should also mention that there are a lot of people in this movie outside of the main bill that are big names. Do you have them?
Oh, I got the whole list.
Oh, beautiful.
I was on top of it this week. Again.
I do want to say one, though. Jim Beaver. He was the park ranger in the beginning. Also, Bobby on Supernatural.
Okay, I did not write that down.
I was super pumped.
There's a couple, and while we're mentioning it, of ones I didn't write down, I want to mention it now before I forget. So if you could scroll down, go back up. Right there, Steven Tobolowsky.
Yep.
He is a great actor.
Tor Ackerman.
And he's also in Silicon Valley. Mm-hmm. And he was in one scene that was apparently cut and deleted, whatever. And I was disappointed to see that. And also, the actual author of the actual book, The Orchid Thief, if you scroll all the way to the bottom.
I changed pages, but... Doo-ba-doo-ba-doo.
So the actual Susan Orlean was in the movie, but her scene was cut, and she was just as a woman in a supermarket.
Did you see that Charlie Kaufman was in the scene where he's in the mirror?
The reflection of the mirror.
I did not catch that.
I didn't catch it, but I read about it afterwards.
Yeah, very cool.
So on top of that, again, as you said, we've got Tilda Swinton, who plays Valerie Thomas, which is the what was she? Was she a movie producer?
Yeah, she was a producer.
Yeah.
That was what I got from it.
So she was the one that was responsible for hiring him as the screenwriter to adapt the book into a movie. Sorry. We've got Cara Seymour, who plays Amelia Cavan, Kavan, who plays the woman that essentially wants to be his girlfriend,
Yep.
but she just gets tired of him not moving forward. Again, the lack of self-confidence, the lack of motivation, and she ends up moving on and finding somebody else. There's a very good scene between them at the end as well.
Yeah, very heartwarming.
Then
I think that actress, you'll know, if you don't know the name, you'll know her from American Psycho as the prostitute that he ends up killing with the chainsaw.
Okay, so we'll see her again at some point.
We will.
'Cause we are watching that movie. My pleasant surprise was Judy Greer.
I love Judy Greer.
Judy
I was
Greer
hoping you would mention
is
it.
awesome. We got to see some more of Judy Greer. Now, she also was in Jurassic World, which is where recently is probably what she's most notable for, as the park director of Jurassic World, next to Chris Pratt.
That was not her.
Oh, who was she then?
That was
Where was she in the? Oh, she was the sister. She was
Yeah,
blonde
she
in
was-
that movie. That's why
right.
it threw me off.
Yeah.
Never mind. She was the sister. That's right. Again, see, they changed their hair too much. Threw me off. All I was thinking of was the redhead. That's
all
right.
you
'cause
honkies look the
the
same.
the redhead in that movie was who?
Opie's daughter, man. I can't think of her fucking name. Bryce Dallas Howard.
All right. So we got Maggie Gyllenhaal, who plays the girlfriend of Donald.
And makeup artist to the stars.
And then two of my favorite hidden gems in the movie. You've got Ron Livingston from Office Space, and I'm sure other things, but from Office Space, who has one of the clips that we capped out. And then Brian Cox, who plays esteemed screenwriter Robert McKee, who and Robert is an actual screenwriter. Who is apparently a famous award-winning screenwriter, and he handpicked Brian Cox to play the role, and we've got one of his rants later on in the clips as well, which I'm super excited to play.
Apparently, Doug Jones was in this too, which is amazing because typically he is a makeup artist kind of actor. He was Abe Sapien in Hellboy, among other things. He's in Pan's Labyrinth. A lot of shows, Star Trek, things like that.
Who was he?
I don't know. He was Augustus, but I don't recall anybody named Augustus. Augustus Marjorie?
I have no idea.
Yeah, that I don't remember that at all.
Amy says, I just assume Doug Jones is in every movie.
It seems that way. But Steven Tobolowsky, man, I love that guy.
He's great. He's great.
Seinfeld is the only reason. Do you use hot water? Yeah. Stop it. You're eating too much dairy. You've seen that episode, right, where they turn George into...
I've seen every episode.
I'm an eggplant! And then those two guys in the ambulance are arguing over Juji fruits and get in the accident.
Yeah. Seinfeld.
Yeah.
I was just thinking of Seinfeld the other day because I was talking about the word fiance and about how much I hate that fucking word.
My fiancé.
Yes, exactly, because of that episode in Seinfeld.
Yeah.
Oh, my fiance.
my fiancé.
I hate that word now.
Yes.
I can't take it seriously.
I've lost my fiancé. The dingo ate your baby. I think that for all the references we do with True Blood and Seinfeld and George Carlin, that should be something.
Should we have a...
Just do a show where we just fucking quote each other, I guess.
The True Blood of Seinfeld
Yeah.
and the resurrection of George Carlin.
That's right. George Carlin is a vampire living in the city. That's it. I guess that covers
Is he
everything.
a train conductor? Mr. Conductor.
George Carlin is a vampire train conductor in New York City, and he has 3 other friends. And they don't do anything but drink True Blood at a bar named Monk's. I know it's a coffee shop, but I'm changing it.
All right. On that note, other than the opening monologue, let's get to our first other clip. This is Nicolas Cage talking to Tilda Swinton about the book.
First, I think it's a great book.
LaRoche is a fun character, isn't he?
Absolutely. And Orlean makes orchids so fascinating. Plus her musings on Florida and orchid poaching, Indians. It's great, sprawling New Yorker stuff. And I'd want to remain true to that. You know, I'd want to let the movie exist rather than be artificially plot-driven.
Great. I guess I'm not exactly sure what that means.
Oh. I'm not sure I know what that means either.
So in that clip, you can definitely get a sense of where he's not sure of himself. He doesn't know how to be assertive with his ideas. He doesn't know how to say, this is what I want to do, this is what I'm going to do, and this is why it's the right move. Like, it's almost like when he throws an idea out there, he tests the waters, and he needs to gauge the other person's reaction to his slightly proposed idea before he kind of moves forward with it.
Especially if it's a woman. He's so far out of his element when talking to women, all of which he seems to deem to be beautiful and above him.
Well, yeah, because he fantasizes about
everybody,
all of them.
Yeah,
in the
and
movie.
The only time that he has any assertion in his life is when he's home with his brother.
Right.
That's the only time that he can take control of the situation. And even then, his brother is too aloof to care, which ends up being a good quality to have later on. But
right.
You're totally right, and it's don't sweat. Don't be sweaty. Can she see me sweating? Yeah. I when I'm in social situations like that, I'm very aware of my own body and my poor posture and all of these things.
Yeah, it's interesting because you end up...
I can't smile. Like right now, it's fine, you know. It's just you and me in here and them, but fuck them. I don't care about them. But like in the real world, like I can't. My face doesn't work, and I like stutter, and I can't. I don't know. I just can't.
You can't.
I can't. Ugh. I lose control of my motor skills and my mouth, and yeah.
I mean, if you're like me, you tend to find yourself to be. You are more aware of yourself than anybody else in the room.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's like exactly you get in your own head, and it's always like. Is the shirt too wrinkled, or
right.
Is it like, you know, or like it you self judge yourself. You
I know what you mean.
More than anybody else does. Like, I mean, you know, I do that. I'll do that. Like, it's one of the reasons if I go to the movies, I hate not sitting in the back row.
Yeah.
Because I feel like everybody behind me is looking at me.
Yeah, the only time I sit
nobody
in the
else in the theater gives a fuck.
No, and it's like being in front of the class for a presentation. Outside of like middle school where it's, you know, a dog eat dog world, like no one gives a fuck. Nobody wants to go up there. Nobody cares what you're saying. Unless by some miracle you've done something riveting, but in school it's highly fucking doubtful.
Right.
But still, I mean, I think about that a lot now that we do podcasts. And I wonder, like, how that would be to do a presentation in school. I would need to be behind a desk. I don't think I could stand up and do it and be comfortable, but I think maybe it wouldn't be so bad at this point.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, I think it'd be an interesting dynamic. I think the parallel to that for us would be to do a live show in front of a live audience.
Right. But see, you and I have the steady shoulders of each other to lean on.
Right. I think there would be a dynamic where it might be at first, like, you know, whoever ends up doing the intro might end up stuttering over it a little bit. But I think once we kind of get in rhythm, it's almost like the rest of the room disappears.
Right. Because you get into doing what you're doing. Also, on like a school presentation where there is no beer, if you need to have a little beer, you can have some beer.
Speaking of which, it is Pumpkinhead season.
It is.
And it is so good. So speaking of asserting his control and you know, kind of grabbing the situation by the reins, the next clip we have here is the talk between him and his brother. And I want to, while it's on my mind now, I want to mention it now before we get into this clip, because the following clip is titled The Coffee and a Muffin, and I know we both know exactly what scene that is. So not only does he have difficulty asserting himself in a situation with women, he also has a difficult time asserting himself in a situation with himself. Like the control that he has over his brother, or at least the verbal control that he tries to have over his brother, like you were saying, like, don't say pitch, don't say this, don't say that. Like he doesn't seem to be able to have that with himself. He almost seems lost on himself when he tries to figure out what to do. And I just wanted to kind of get that idea out there.
Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned that, because that's another thing that I really found identifiable in this movie is that you're locked inside your own head a lot of the times, which again is a theme within this movie, given that it takes place on the set of Being John Malkovich. But a lot of times you'll second guess yourself in life. I don't know. So it's weird, right? Like, so take just normal feelings. I don't know how other people feel, but like I have no perception of other people, right? I'm trapped in here, as are you, as are they. So how am I to know that the chicken actually tastes like chicken? How do I know that what I'm feeling is actually what I'm feeling? I constantly
You in the
second
Matrix?
guess. Right? Well, that's what I compared it to. But, like, how do I can't make decisions, man. I'm basically crippled in life because I never know. Do I really feel that way? Do I not? Is this a good move? Is that a good move?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's like, do I want to do this because it fits the situation, or do I want to do it because I want to do it?
And then, like, you'll hear with him, like, he verbalizes his ideas, and then in listening back to them, they just sound stupid. So as I go over and over things in my head, it's like, I don't know. Do I really feel that way? I just don't know. I don't know anything. I'm lost.
So we'll back to back these then. So we got the brothers talk, because I think there's a good, like I mentioned, there's a good dynamic here between these two clips. So we've got Charlie and Donald talking, and then we've got the inner monologue of just Charlie.
There are no rules, Donald, and anybody who says there are is just
not rules, principles. McKee writes that a rule says you must do it this way. A principle says this works and has through all remembered time.
The script I'm starting, it's about flowers.
Oh.
Nobody's ever done a movie about flowers before. So there are no guidelines.
What about Flowers for Algernon?
Well, that's not about flowers.
Oh,
and it's not a movie.
Sorry, I never saw it. Okay, keep going.
Look, my point is that those teachers are dangerous if your goal is to try to do something new. And a writer should always have that goal. Writing is a journey into the unknown. It's not building, one of your model airplanes.
So, as we had said there, you hear the assertion of kind of, this is how it is, this is what you do,
right,
with his brother.
Take my advice from an established writer. This is how you do it. This is the right way. There are no other ways. Do it my way or no way. Just because, some guy in a room told you to do something, you shouldn't do it. You don't know. You're not the writer.
Yet he's another guy in a room telling him what to do.
Exactly. And in real life, Charlie Kaufman does those writing seminars. So, pot calling the kettle black. Now, we need JF in here. I was thinking about that clip. I was hoping that JF would give his 2 cents on that particular thing.
JF is he's at
Dragon Con.
Yeah, he might be on his way home, but he was at Dragon Con, so yeah. I don't expect to see him in the chat room. I thought about that too.
No, definitely not,
but all right, so anyway, so as I was saying, so there we had the brothers talk. Now this is the inner monologue where he finds himself incapable of exerting that control over himself. And again, it's coffee and a muffin. So this was a very relatable clip for me.
To begin, how to start. I'm hungry. I should get coffee. Coffee would help me think. But I should write something first, then reward myself with coffee. Coffee and a muffin. Okay, so I need to establish the themes. Maybe banana nut. That's a good muffin.
Do you ever find yourself doing that?
And we'll be right back after this coffee break.
Right.
Yeah, always. It's risk reward, right? Like,
well,
everything is
not so much that. Well, yeah, not so much that, but it's like, all right, I really want this, but I got to do this. Oh, but that, and
if this then that, but I mean, how often does it in our lives? Like, if I really want that, I'm just gonna go do that. I'm not gonna fucking do this first.
Do you find coming. I mean, it's funny how this particular episode is very much like Movie Busters and a little Singcast and Movie Busters.
It's always like that. That's my fault completely.
No, it's perfectly okay. But yeah, do you find that kind of moving into the adult life, whereas you aren't doing things so much for the reward because we're adults, we make our own money.
Right.
Like at any point in time, I can go buy myself something.
Well, to go back to Seinfeld again, you with a little Carlin, you reach the age of reason. Oh, your mother says, don't eat that cookie. You're going to spoil your dinner. Well, I now know that there are more fucking dinners coming, and I can have a cookie if I want to because I'll be hungry again later.
Right.
Yeah, no, that is something that makes life less sweet, I think, as well.
Right.
As an adult, yeah, you make your own money. You can do what you want. So if you want that instant gratification, go have it. But at the same time, you've grown up, you're working. And working life tends to, especially if you're doing something that doesn't make you happy, it strips away a lot of the joy in life, and then you get days where you're free, and you're just recuperating from the rape that your psyche has incurred for 5 days previous, and then by the time you feel like yourself again, you're back to work again. But on the upside, going to work gets you the money to get what you want, and around it goes.
So that's kind of the work and the reward, right?
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, it does kind of bounce.
But is the reward worth the stripping away of your joy?
Well, I guess that's on us to make sure it is.
Oh boy. But I can't make decisions, Nate. So I'm fucked.
So as we progress further into the movie, so this is our first clip featuring Meryl Streep and Chris Cooper. Now, again, this is the second time we saw Chris Cooper. We saw him in episode 1 when we did American Beauty. I really like him as an actor.
Versatile, isn't he?
He is. I swear, did we not see him?
I don't remember the last movie we watched. What episode is this? 5?
This is 4. We watched Dirty Grandpa.
He wasn't in that. What was the other one?
American History X.
Was he in that?
I don't think so. It just felt like he was because there was the parallel with the Nazis.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Okay. So this is our second Chris Cooper appearance. And again, yeah, very versatile. I didn't recognize him at first. I'm like, I think that's him.
No, the prosthesis to green screen out his teeth really changed everything. And he grew out his hair and all of that.
Right. And I tell you, so that is a character. I mean, you want to talk about a character that has several layers and it is really an onion that's being peeled back. The more you found out about that particular character. So remember how I had said when we watched American Beauty and we had his character who was the military vet, he was, I don't know if I'd call him a Nazi sympathizer, but he definitely had, there was levels there. Again, if you want to hear more about that character in that movie, check out episode 1. But one of the things that I had said was, I wish we got more of that character because that character could have had depth.
Right, and here you have it.
And here you have it more than I expected, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. But
they really drive that point home too, where the dinner party that she had,
right,
where they were making fun of him for just being a backwater with no front teeth and all of that,
right,
and a smelly character and whatnot,
right.
You find out later in the movie, these layers get peeled away, and like everything, the lesson is we shouldn't judge a book by its cover.
Right, like the reason why he never fixed his teeth,
right,
because it was the memory of the loss of his mother, and
exactly.
So, and that scene, that was really powerful, like when he's being pulled away, and not the only car accident in the movie. Again, there was a level to that character, and the more you hear him speak, so you see him, I didn't capture many of his early clips. You see him in the very beginning, and like you said, he just looks like this backwater southern, just kind of dumb hick.
Yeah, he's very pompous. I'm the smartest guy I know. And, he just knows a lot about a lot. Even in the first scene where he comes out of the Seminole swamp with the Seminole Indians, and he's just holier than thou to the park ranger.
Right.
Because for those that don't know, typically Indians have the right for native lands. They can do what they will.
Regardless of state or federal laws.
Well, why am I saying this? You should be the one saying
I don't know that.
Yeah, no, you do. you can hunt. You can do
whatever. Well, yeah, things like that. Like I have a lifetime hunter's license.
Right, exactly.
I never have to renew it.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's my fucking land, damn it.
Right, exactly. I'm sorry I stole it from you. So, But the Jim Beaver, the park ranger, comes out and he's like, "What the fuck are you doing? You can't do this. It's totally illegal to take these endangered species off this land." And he says, "Well, maybe you don't know, but I'm with these guys and they can do whatever they want."
Right.
And that's the overlying theme with him throughout the movie. Everything he talks about, he knows all about it. But at the same time, he has a love for nothing. He can just toss everything away on a whim and start something else. The last direction he takes in the movie is surprising to me, considering all his previous passions. He chooses computers and porn. But he wants to learn computers, but through porn. Like, that's how he teaches himself the technology.
Being compassionate about computers and porn is confusing to you?
It's confusing to me that he
goes...
Yes. But I'm not him. I didn't go from fossils to fish to endangered species of orchids, which, by the way,
you're an outdoor woodland person.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. All right. Do you want to just knock out my front teeth now? Did you know that with orchids, the only thing that we really eat from them is vanilla? That's in the orchid family.
I did not know that.
Yeah. There you go. Play the clip.
Darwin wrote about this one. Charles Darwin, evolution guy. Hello. You see that nectary all the way down there? Darwin hypothesized a moth with a nose 12 inches long to pollinate it. Everyone thought he was a loon. And sure enough, they found this moth with a 12-inch proboscis. Proboscis means nose, by the way.
I know what proboscis means.
Hey, let's not get off the subject. This isn't a pissing contest. The point is, what's so wonderful is that every one of these flowers has a specific relationship with the insect that pollinates it. There's a certain orchid looks exactly like a certain insect, so the insect is drawn to this flower. It's double, it's soulmate, and wants nothing more than to make love to it. After, the insect flies off, spots another soulmate flower and makes love to it, thus pollinating it. And neither the flower nor the insect will ever understand the significance of their lovemaking. I mean, how could they know that because of their little dance, the world lives? But it does. By simply doing what they're designed to do, something large and magnificent happens. In this sense, they show us how to live, how the only barometer you have is your heart. How, when you spot your flower, you can't let anything get in your way.
So, case in point, for the first part of that clip, what I didn't notice, that I did notice when you played the clip, was the building music to more pound home his profound point that he was making.
Right.
And lastly, Nate, tell me about your 12-inch proboscis.
My 12-inch nose?
Oh, yeah, that's right. It means nose. I forgot. I forgot.
Well, I mean, I guess they pollinate it with their nose, so the direct relation for us would be...
That's right.
The Panisia.
Humans, by the way, for what we are and our size, compared to other species, have gigantic penises. They should not be nearly as big as they are. Thus proving that we've evolved not only for procreation, but pleasure.
That is, I just got fucked then.
If you subscribe to the idea that size matters, I guess, but
it's not the size of the boat.
It's not the curve in the flower.
Feel sorry for the person that just came into Twitch.
Right. It's not the size of your proboscis that matters.
Right. Yeah, it's the depth of your
pollinator. It's the curve of your flower, I suppose.
But so one of the things that I noticed in this scene is this is really when you start to notice that Meryl Streep is developing a liking for this character, a love for Chris Cooper's character. She starts to realize even more that he is not the dumb idiot that she first thought he was.
No, he's a bit crude on the surface, but he also has a lot of profound and deep thoughts.
Right.
But it is definitely foreshadowed that whether it ends up being trumped up and imagined by Kaufman or whether it actually happened, I'm not really certain, because we know that he needed to go somewhere with that screenplay, and those are all the things that he was trying to avoid that we actually end up seeing. Everything that he basically told his brother not to write in the screenplay ends up happening in his screenplay. Gunfight, car chase, love, death, so on and so forth. But you're right. That is the beginning of what ends up being a weird, secretive love and romance between the two of them.
So I'm fairly confident that if I can get my iPad without breaking everything over here, because that's just what I do.
Yeah.
Look at that. I am on fire.
What's happening?
I don't know. Things are being hit. Things are moving. Well, the iPad is fucking crashed. There we go.
Yeah.
It's also the soundboard. So yeah, there was a. Oh, where are you? It was Susan Orlean, the actual Susan Orlean, the author that wrote The Orchid Thief, said that she was first concerned that some people would think that her portrayal in the film was accurate, but then was reminded also how Charlie Kaufman portrays himself.
Right.
So I'm fairly certain none of that actually happened.
No, I don't think it actually happened at all. And I read that same factoid that you just read online, and I agree. It's just funny to see how within the movie, all the things he didn't want to have in his screenplay end up happening.
Right. It's almost again like he ultimately knew what needed to happen to make this movie based off this book work,
Right.
But he didn't want to. There's the word again. He didn't want to fall into the tropes. He didn't want to blow it up. He didn't want your typical Hollywood based on a true story or based on a novel or whatever, and then have to blow it up to make it sell. He wanted to stay as true to the source material as he could, and he just found out. And maybe this is a good lesson. Maybe even for people like myself who constantly will say like, "Oh yeah, that was good, but the book was better." Or how many horror movies are based on a true story, and there's just like one simple fact in the movie and the rest of it is blown up. So, and I wonder how many, I'm sure not many of them are as noble as he tried to be in this movie, but how many of them like, okay, yeah, so this is a cool concept, but for me to make this work, I need to do all of this.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder how many times, whether it be the person providing the source material, like the author of the book, and the person doing the screenwriting for the adaptation, I wonder how often a conflict similar to this is felt behind the scenes.
I wonder how often it comes that the author of said book sells the rights, and then they just do whatever they want. Moreover, I wonder how often the author says, yes, I endorse this, but in reality they say, wow, this is really fucked. Case in point, The Dark Tower. Stephen King lauded the movie. I just can't see how. Which is the case with a lot of Stephen King movies, actually. A lot of them are not good.
Yeah.
But regardless, he stands by a lot of it.
I wouldn't say that they're not good. They're not good in the sense that they don't follow the books well, but they're entertaining.
But they make movies out of, say, Children of the Corn.
Okay.
That story is 10 pages. So they've taken liberties there, but that movie I did not find to be great, other than...
and they've got, 11 sequels?
Yeah. Other than Ginger Kid saying Outlander. That was the only thing I liked in that movie. And Maximum Overdrive, which is typically regarded as the worst Stephen King movie ever, which is actually my favorite, even though it's terrible.
Dude, the Coke-infused trailer that he did for that movie was epic.
The one where he's at the ATM?
Yeah. Or he's doing the, where he does the VO for the trailer.
Does he?
Yeah.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah.
Honey, this machine just called me an asshole. I love that movie so
there's
much.
one where, we can maybe put it in the post show, because if you've never heard it. It's massive Coke infused.
Just a rant.
Yeah, huh. It's great. I like that. And then you get the Green Goblin truck or car. Man. Yeah. No, but again, I don't know. I never read the short story, but I remember watching that movie at your place on one of your birthday gatherings.
Probably.
Yeah.
I used to subject people to movies all the time.
Hanging out in the basement. Remember Bartlett was there?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But yeah, no. So again, I wonder how that conflict is felt, and I wonder how if it's felt. I mean, if this is maybe a little bit more of a blown up version of that. But I don't know. I suppose we'll never know.
No. But again, like, this clip just reflects more in the movie where, yes, it's about his struggle to write the screenplay, but it's also about his own personal growth.
Right.
And through all of these things that you see, you're seeing him move a little closer toward self-actualization. Not to say that he really changes that much by the end of the film, but he at least gets some closure, which is more than we can say for other characters, as always.
For sure. So now we start to get into Meryl Streep's character a little bit more. The next clip is called Want to Want Something, and you really start to feel the breakdown of that character. You've got Chris Cooper's character, who, as we talked about, is passionate about apparently fucking everything. You've got Charlie, who's passionate about writing and about writing a certain way. You've got Donald, who I don't know what you would label him to be passionate about, but I mean, I guess he's just passionate about being himself.
He seems to be passionate about being passionate.
Yeah.
Regardless as to what it is. And he doesn't waste time worrying about what other people think of him, because his ideas are his.
Right.
And his feelings are his, and he owns them.
I could see that. Yeah. So kind of in that way. So we find out that Meryl Streep just wants something to be passionate about.
Right.
And has no idea what that is, as we will hear here.
I wanted to want something as much as people wanted these plants. But it isn't part of my constitution. I suppose I do have one unembarrassed passion. I want to know what it feels like to care about something passionately.
So I'm wondering how true that is to the author. And I'm wondering, because obviously the book, The Orchid Thief, I mean, I'm not going to pretend to be familiar with it, but I know about what they tell you about it in the movie. It's her observing, again, Chris Cooper's character, a man of passion. I wonder if that is a majority of the actual author's work, whereas she is observing other people's passion. Like, I'm wondering if that quote holds true to the actual author.
I bet it does. That seems pretty well written. I'm sure that was probably in the book, right? And if it wasn't in the book, then Jesus Christ, what are they pulling from the book other than the fact that this guy likes to go out and steal endangered flowers? It's a pretty well written passage. Is that the same scene where she wants to be new and be a baby again? It's not, right?
No. That was at the very end.
That was later, wasn't
yeah,
it?
that was at the very end after the alligator attack.
So it's clear at this point that she's just fallen into this, upper middle class lifestyle in New York or wherever she is, and it's just superficial, and she's going through the motions, but it really means nothing. She cares about nothing. She wants to know what it is to care about something.
So I want to read this little factoid here. And so it's just kind of another synopsis of the movie, but I like how it's worded, and it also reveals to us, which I don't think we've talked about yet, but outside of the movie, Donald doesn't exist. Donald Kaufman is not a real person. So it says, based on writer Charlie Kaufman's struggle to adapt the best-selling book, The Orchid Thief by Susan Orlean, Kaufman quickly got into a writer's block since the book lacked the dramatic structure needed for a movie. So he decided to write a screenplay about himself struggling to write a book adaptation, exaggerating many of the story elements and characters and making up new ones, such as a non-existent twin brother, Donald Kaufman. Knowing that the producers would reject the idea, he did not tell them about the new direction in which he was taking the story, and simply handed in the finished script. Although this movie was supported by Spike Jonze, Kaufman himself believed it would end his career, and it obviously didn't.
I read that clip earlier in the day. Thoughts?
I didn't realize that Donald wasn't real until I read that. No. I thought the Kaufmans were just twin brothers. Now, is Charlie, so I say these, again, Donald's not real. So is Charlie, is he Andy's son?
I don't know. to tell you the truth. We had talked about that earlier, and I meant to actually look to see. But I don't know. So this is where we go find out.
This is where we go find out. So let's see here. I mean, there's got to be a relation. He looks just like him.
Doop, 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 doop.
So it says, avid reader Charlie Kaufman wrote plays and made short films as a young student. He moved from New York to West Hartford, Connecticut in 1972, where he attended school. As a comedic actor, he performed in school plays, and after graduation, he enrolled at Boston University. Always a local guy. But soon transferred to NYU to study film. Worked circulations, blah, blah, blah. He went on to write comedy sketches and a variety of TV show episodes. Between writing assignments, he wrote the inventive screenplay Being John Malkovich, which created the Hollywood interest and the attention of Steve Golan. Charlie works at home in California with his wife and children.
Did I hear that Kaufman is a stage name there? Was that not his actual last name?
No, I didn't. I didn't say that. I don't think. I'm trying to see. I guess trivia. And there's nothing. Is there anything? Can you find anything on Wiki?
I didn't see anything there, and I'm sure that if that was the case, it would be in the trivia.
Yeah.
How could it not be?
Apparently he worked alongside Stephen Colbert and Louis C.K. on the writing staff of the Dana Carvey Show.
Mm.
Yeah, you would think that if there was, I mean, they look so much. I'm amazed that in the about.
Yeah, his father is Myron Kaufman, so there you go. Which is surprising to me because I agree with you.
You say Myron Kaufman?
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm wondering who Myron Kaufman.
Stay with us while we go down the rabbit hole of the genealogy of Charlie Kaufman.
Right. Myron Kaufman. Come on, Wiki. Give me something. No, there's no way. Because he was born in 1921.
Mm.
So yeah, Massachusetts. No, I'm amazed Corey hasn't chimed in with something. You thought Corey would have known this.
Right.
Yeah, so apparently no relation, which is surprising because, again, the visual similarities between the characters is kind of right there. But yeah, so no, again, I would like to know how much, again, so obviously the author wasn't portrayed, point to point in the movie, but I'm wondering how much of it was her. And again, I'm pretty sure that wanting to be passionate was probably a part of it.
Right.
So now we get a clip that presents, like we've talked about with Chris Cooper's character. He becomes very passionate and then seems to be able to move on at the drop of a hat. And in this particular clip, we're talking about fish.
Look, I'll tell you a story, all right? I once fell deeply, profoundly in love with tropical fish. I had 60 goddamn fish tanks in my house. I skin dived to find just the right ones. Anisotromus virginicus, Holocanthus ciliaris, Chaetodon capistratus, you name it. Then one day I say, fuck fish. I renounce fish. I vow never to set foot in that ocean again. That's how much fuck fish.
That's how much fuck fish.
I renounce fish.
So again, there's that whole passionate, loves it, goes full on board with it, 100%, and then just out of nowhere, fuck fish.
Does that remind you of anybody?
I don't know, but I want a bumper sticker that says fuck fish.
People might take that the wrong way. I've definitely known people in my life that go full on head first, balls deep into things, and then turn right around and say fuck fish. Words
Me?
to live by, really. Yeah, I was talking about you.
I definitely do that. And again, I get that. Like, you find something, and I don't necessarily think it's becoming passionate about something and then losing the passion. I think it almost in a way kind of goes back to my whole throwing spaghetti at the wall frame of mind.
Yeah.
Where it's like you try and find something and then you think you're passionate about it. And I don't necessarily think that he has these passions and then drops them. I just think it's that he realizes that he wasn't passionate about it.
I think a lot of it is a matter of inspirational fatigue. You put a lot of time and effort into something, and then you're gonna get tired of it. It's like phases, right? So take fandom, Star Wars. Well, we talk about sci-fi and fantasy a lot, right?
Right.
So depending on what's in pop culture at the time, you tend to lead more toward one thing versus the other. So Star Wars is on its way to coming back out again. Everybody's into sci-fi. We like Star Wars. But say if it was up against the Lord of the Rings or something like that, everybody's into fantasy. We like wizards. Well, Game of Thrones, perfect example. So we just had Game of Thrones. Everybody's into that kind of stuff. That's gone by the wayside now, and the next thing we have to look forward to as geeks is Star Wars. So everybody focuses on that kind of stuff until that's been done to death. We'll talk about vampires and True Blood. Look at that versus zombies, right? I think people are collectively getting a little tired of zombies. Took a long time, but I think it's happening, right? So all of these things tend to fade in and out of the ether. I know for me, when I was a kid, it was a matter of toys I had. I'd be super into G.I. Joes for a while, and then I would be so not into it. I'm super into Legos. I'm not into Legos, you know? It's a tide of inspiration and imagination. So, you know, whatever rings your bell for a while, but as soon as you put... I don't know, I'm just speaking for me. If I put a lot of time into something over a period, I'm going to be tired of it for a while.
Essentially burnout.
Yeah. Yes, that is the short way to say what I was just trying to say. I get burned out.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it happens.
Now, for him, you know, he never goes back. I don't know... Is there anything that you have not revisited and just said, fuck it?
I don't think so.
No. I mean,
no,
look,
you always...
Look at wrestling. Like, we've lived and died by the sword of wrestling as teenagers. Forgot about it for a little while, but never really. It's always on the back burner.
I think the one thing to say about that is it's finding something... and It's finding something that has several layers. Like we use, I'll use the onion reference again, right? So it's on its surface, it's very simple, but you peel it back and there's so many different layers. And I think that's what allows passion to stay. Like look at with podcasting, for example, like with the exception of gaming, right? So we're now in September of 2017. And this started back in June of 2014. With the exception of gaming, how many things have I done consistently for this long and not grown tired of it?
Right.
But the thing is you have shows that come and go.
Right.
You know, you have ideas that come and go. You have the side projects that come and go. But ultimately, it is the basis, that base level of the passion of the studio that stays. And again, same with gaming. You have games that come and go. I mean, how many times have I subbed to WoW, unsubbed from WoW, subbed to SWTOR, back and forth, things like that. You know, you bounce between your shooters, you bounce between your MOBAs, single player, multiplayer. You want a story-driven campaign, you want random mindless shooter. But the gaming is where the passion lies. And I think that's part of it is to keep that passion, you have to find something where you enjoy peeling away the layers and you don't just like the onion as a whole.
Well, I think with gaming and podcasting, the beauty of it is the medium is the same.
Right.
The device with which you transcend into that particular world is the same.
Right.
But the content can change. So if you get tired of one thing, just change it. The shows change, the games change. I think in terms of LaRoche, it reveals a little bit of fear on his part. He gets to a certain point with all of these loves, and then maybe there's a crack and something happens. I mean, I know we're going to find out soon that he has a lot of loss, and he loses not only family members, he loses businesses, things like that. I think that as soon as he's done something to a point where he thinks he's an expert, he no longer needs it, because if he keeps it around for too long, it'll show a weak point in his armor. Maybe that's a stretch. I just made it up, but I thought it sounded good.
I like it. So I'm going to back-to-back these two. These are both writers' rants. Now, I'm going to apologize in advance. Both of these clips, in some way or another, go back and forth between monologue and him talking. And the volumes change, so I'm going to try my best to stay on top of them. But it might get a little loud, and if it does, it'll just be for a moment. I'll be right there to collect it. But this is Writer Rant and Writer Rant number 2. So and again, I should say we're back to Nicolas Cage here, Charlie Kaufman. So here you go and enjoy.
It is a journey of evolution, adaptation, the journey we all take, a journey that unites each and every one of us. Darwin writes that we all come from the very first single-cell organism. Yet here I am. And there's LaRoche, there's Orlean, and there's the ghost orchid. All trapped in our own bodies, in moments in history. That's it. That's what I need to do. Tie all of history together.
Start right before life begins on the planet. All is lifeless. And then life begins with organisms. Those little single-cell ones. Oh, and it's before sex, because, everything was asexual. From there, we go to bigger things, jellyfish. And then that fish that got legs on it and crawled out onto land, and then we see, dinosaurs. And then they're around for a long, long time. And then an asteroid comes and flork! The insects, the extinctive mammals, the primates, monkeys, the simple monkeys, the old-fashioned monkeys giving way to the new monkeys, whatever, and then apes, whatever, and man. Then we see the whole history of human civilization, hunting and gathering, farming, war, love, religion, heartache, disease, loneliness, technology. And we bring it all the way to this moment in history and end with Susan Orlean in her office of the New Yorker writing about flowers, and bang, the movie begins.
I'm fucked.
Okay, we open with LaRoche. He's funny. Okay, he says, I love to mutate plants. He says mutation is fun. Okay, we show flowers and, okay, we have to have the court case. Okay, we show LaRoche. Okay, he says, I was mutated as a baby. That's why I'm so smart. That's funny. Okay, we open at the beginning of time. No, okay, we open with LaRoche driving into the swamp.
Crazy white man.
Who am I kidding? This is not Susan Orlean's story. I have no connection with her. I can't even meet her. I can't meet anyone. I have no understanding of anything outside of my own panic and self-loathing and pathetic little existence. It's like the only thing I'm actually qualified to write about is myself and my own self.
We open on Charlie Kaufman, fat, old, bald, repulsive, sitting in a Hollywood restaurant across from Valerie Thomas, a lovely, statuesque film executive. Kaufman, trying to get a writing assignment, wanting to impress her, sweats profusely. Fat, bald, Kaufman paces furiously in his bedroom. He speaks into his handheld tape recorder and he says, Charlie Kaufman, fat, bald, repulsive, old, sits at a Hollywood restaurant with Valerie Thomas. Kaufman, repugnant, ridiculous, jerks off to the book jacket photo of Susan Orlean.
So they didn't really get too much into that clip, but the whole, we talked about the fantasy where he jerked off to the book jacket picture of Susan Orlean.
The fantasy comes with the caveat of him increasingly being more self-deprecating.
Right, and you can hear that in the progression of rants.
Exactly. With each one, he shits on himself a little bit more and a little bit more.
And that's why I kind of did the clips that way. Like you really, because those all three sections of there's several minutes apart. Even that third one there, there are several scenes in between those rants. But I like the dichotomy of the word. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm looking for here. Yeah, of playing all three of them back to back, because you can really, again, back to back, you hear the breakdown of the character and how the story is becoming about him and not about her,
right? Not
about Chris Cooper's character, but it's becoming about Kaufman.
And you get Cage at his cagiest in that moment for this film. That's really the only time that Nick Cage, as we know him, comes through. I mean, at this point, I think we should mention that Donald is writing a screenplay called The Three.
Right.
And that brings in another level and another layer in this movie where we wonder, we know Donald doesn't exist.
Right.
And he talks about his own screenplay, which is very much like Identity.
Right.
But there's a theme of that in this movie where how many of these people actually exist and they're not just in Charlie's head. It's definitely not that way, but there are a lot of things that could make you think that it is that way in the movie.
Well, there's the simpleness that is the Judy Greer character.
Right.
Like I put her on the list of cast just because it's Judy Greer.
Right.
But her character is she's in two scenes in a fantasy. Like he meets her at a diner, and then fantasizes about asking her to the Orchid convention, which I didn't realize were a thing.
I went to one of those earlier this year.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Oh, so he fantasized about that, and then like they went out back in the woods, and she took her top off, and then his brother woke him up, and he hollered at him to get out, and then he goes back to that thing, and then actually asks her, and then that like she's being playful as a waitress would do, and then she's like, yeah, you're my orchid expert, and then he asks her to the convention, and she just realizes that he's a weirdo, and but he has those moments a lot where was she there or was she in his head, like. Because that's almost, I mean, the way that character reacted was, again, it was almost that I have an idea, time to self-deprecate. So like he has this redhead who he fancied and fantasized about, and then she rejected him. So was that character there, or was that more of his, well, she's too good for me, so she's not going to want me, and like it's that fantasy in his head where he's never good enough. I want to play this clip really quick. It's not really relevant. It's just funny. I guess it kind of does pertain to the whole, like, people don't listen to him in a way, but it's Ron Livingston from Office Space, and he's just funny. So here you go.
I don't know how to adapt this. I mean, I should have just stuck with my own stuff. I don't know why I thought I could write this, but
See her? I fucked her up the ass. No. I'm kidding. Maybe I can help.
It's about flowers.
Okay. But it's not only about flowers, right? I mean, you have the crazy plant nut guy, right? He's funny, right?
There's not nearly enough of him to fill a book. So Orlean digresses in long passages, blah, blah, blah. No narrative really unites these passages. New York Times book review. I can't structure this. It's that sprawling New Yorker shit.
Oh, man. I'd fuck her up the ass.
Yeah, I think his character in this movie is just your stereotypical agent where he doesn't
care.
No.
It's the trope.
Right. But you're right. It's another instance of... Well, the women that he reacts with are definitely hanging on his every word. It's just that he can't get anything profound out. And they always end up looking at him in this sidelong kind of way where I don't really understand why you're acting this way, but all right. And now you're automatically creepy. You obviously don't know how to read the room.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now we're going to start getting our way into, I mean, there's kind of a dual act 3 here. Like it's when you think everything's coming together and then they just fucking throw you a curveball. But this is the beginning of him starting to understand. He finally gives in to his brother after he tries to meet with Orlean and realizes that he doesn't have the balls to talk to her. So he finally gives in and he goes to a Robert McCree seminar. Again, Robert McCree, played by Brian Cox. An amazing character, amazingly played by Brian Cox. Brian Cox is awesome. I can't wait till we watch Super Troopers.
You know what it was? He was very Lewis Black in this movie.
He was. He was indeed.
Did we mention that was the reason that Donald decided to be a screenwriter is because he went to one of this guy's seminars?
Was that the reason?
Well, I don't know if it was the reason, but it was the
behind,
driving force behind
it. It was
that.
where he got all, like, while Charlie was trying to help him and give him pointers, he was ignoring Charlie and listening to Robert. And that was a lot of the distaste towards Robert that Charlie had at first. And then, again, with the success of the 3 and the agent loving it and saying, you know, maybe you should get Donald to help you. Because he's obviously doing something right.
See, and that's what annoys me in this movie. I said earlier that I identify more with Charlie. So if we can relate it to, like, music, the 3 would be pop music, right? Everybody likes it, but it's shit. It sounds just like everything else. Whereas Charlie was trying to do something different, but everybody just glazes over it. Thus proving my point that most people are sheep. You mentioned the 3, right? And I had talked about how... that movie being like Identity was the theme in this movie. At the end of the credits in Adaptation, they show the first paragraph of the 3. And it lends itself, I'm not going to read it because it's kind of stupid, But it lends itself to the theory that Susan, Charlie, and Donald are all the same person in this movie. So the 3 is about... it's a movie within a movie within a movie. Everything is written around in this big mess.
Almost in a way like this is the 3.
Right. Exactly.
I didn't read the paragraph. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting... yeah, I like that. I wish I had read that paragraph now. So this is a great rant done by... Hello, Princess Perv.
I think you're in the wrong room.
I think you are too. So this is again the rant by Brian Cox, and it's great. Charlie asks him, "Well, what if your movie is more like real life, where nothing happens?" And he's like, "Nothing happens?" It's like, "What the fuck are you talking about?"
You've gone right out of your mind.
Right?
Sir, what if a writer is attempting to create a story where nothing much happens, where people don't change, they don't have any epiphanies, they struggle and are frustrated and nothing is resolved? More a reflection of the real world.
The real world?
Yes, sir.
The real fucking world. First of all, you write a screenplay without conflict or crisis, you'll bore your audience to tears. Secondly, nothing happens in the world? Are you out of your fucking mind? People are murdered every day. There's genocide, war, corruption. Every fucking day, somewhere in the world, somebody sacrifices his life to save somebody else. Every fucking day, someone somewhere takes a conscious decision to destroy someone else. People find love. People lose it. For Christ's sake, a child watches a mother beaten to death on the steps of a church. Someone goes hungry. Somebody else betrays his best friend for a woman. If you can't find that stuff in life, then you, my friend, don't know crap about life. And why the fuck are you wasting my 2 precious hours with your movie? I don't have any use for it. I don't have any bloody use for it.
Okay, thanks.
I like the very timid "okay, thanks" at the end.
Yeah.
It again, it goes back to his character and how he's like, "Oh, okay."
Okay, so I was going to type this out for the chat room, but in reference to the conversation going on, what you want to do is...
I banned them.
Never mind, because I wanted you to go back to the beginning, because if you wanted a show, that's where that is. But forget it.
Yeah.
Forget it.
I don't have the patience for trolls tonight.
Forget it.
So
don't fuck with us.
So we're gonna get around to wrapping up here. We'll be approaching about an hour and a half by the time the episode ends, and I like it, but I don't want to make them too long.
No, this isn't Mind of a Geek.
No, so that was kind of where we start to get the character, we start to get the breakdown. There's a scene in the bar. He basically he all but begs him to, like, hey, sit with me for a minute.
Yeah, he's having a crisis. So yeah, he needs a little guidance there.
Right.
Whether he gets it from the person who is the antithesis of what he is, that's fine.
Right. So he goes there and they talk, and they have this conversation about how you have to find an end, like give it an end. And he even references, he's like, don't do some Deus Machina bullshit. He's like, just give it a real end. He goes, because you can have errors, you can have mistakes, you can have crap, but if you blow them away in the end,
yeah, that's all that
you'll
matters.
entertain them. Right. And there are plenty of movies that follow that suit, where it's like mediocre, and then the ending is just phenomenal.
Right. And after this film, he amended what he said about voiceovers in his seminars. He said that voiceovers are okay from time to time.
Right, as long as they forward the story and don't just explain what's going on in the scene.
Right. Now, I like voiceovers and I like asides. So if we're going to be Shakespearean, I forget the term, but asides, basically, where they step away and they break the fourth wall and talk to you.
Right.
I like that.
Yeah. No, that's why Deadpool.
Yeah, exactly. And like in writing, I like parentheses a lot to add that afterthought to everything that gets said.
Right.
But I guess that's because I'm a timid, ineffectual type person, right? And I have to give... Ashley knows what I'm talking about because Ashley gives a caveat to everything she says too. She's going to give me the finger right now, I can tell you.
The subtext?
I have to ask you a question. Yeah, anyway. We don't want to drag this out any longer.
So we end up getting to the point where They confront her. This is where we get the spiral. We find out that there's more to her than we realized, and she runs off to Florida to be with Chris Cooper's character. We find out that she's addicted to drugs. She has this whole other life that she's leading, where she escapes, and they go, and they're basically getting high off the orchid extract. So it's like green cocaine.
Yeah, it seems that way, right?
Yeah. So, and then they decide that he knows too much, and they're gonna kill him. So they end up getting away, or Charlie ends up getting away with the help of Donald. And then they have this heart to heart, which I think is probably if not, then one of the primary messages of the movie. And the quote at the very end of this clip is probably one of my favorite quotes now. This is my first time seeing the movie, and I think it's this particular quote sums up the movie quite well, aside from the very end. But this, I think, does a good job of it.
Oh God, I was so in love with her. I know. And you were flirting with her, and she was being really sweet to you. I remember that. And then, when you walked away, she started making fun of you with Kim Kennedy. And it was like they were laughing at me. You didn't know it all? You seemed so happy. I knew. I heard them. Well, how come you were so happy? I love Sarah, Charles. It was mine. That love. I owned it. Even Sarah didn't have the right to take it away. I can love whoever I want. She thought you were pathetic. That was her business, not mine. You are what you love, not what loves you.
Yeah, I think that's the overarching message in the movie. There's a lot to be said there. Charlie sees his brother as more than just a buffoon and gets some insight as to his real line of thinking and looking at life, and also gets some inspiration from what he says. That I'm trying to formulate my thoughts, but there's a lot of stuff going on in that particular clip.
Right.
Thoughts?
Like I said, I think that just kind of pulls back everything, and it's purely what is trying to be said is that, I guess the only way to break it down is like, you do you. Like, you are who you are. You're going to love what you love. You're going to be passionate about what you're passionate about. Don't worry about the outside looking in. Don't worry about what other people think. Don't worry about anything else. Just worry about you. And I really like the reference they had there with in high school, he loved this girl, and yeah, she made fun of him, and yeah, like they teased him and whatnot, and he knew, but he didn't care because his love for her was his. It was his to have. It made him happy, and who was she to take that away? And I think that shows a real sign of strength. I think it shows a real sign of quality in that character, where he finds happiness in that. And you see that in the last scene with Nicolas Cage and Cara Seymour, where they're talking, and this is after Donald passed away in the car accident, and they're talking, and he looks at her, and like he gives her a kiss and tells her he loves her. And she does this whole, like, I'm seeing someone. Why are you doing this now? Like, why didn't you do this earlier? Mm-hmm. And then when she goes to walk away, and she says, "I love you too." And it's one of those things where it's lost.
Yeah, and it's too little, too late. It's great that she loves him back, but why could he not have acted on it when he actually had the chance?
Right. And
go ahead.
I was saying that goes back to what his brother's quote was, where he wasn't concerned with how much he loved her. He was concerned with whether or not she loved him. And that, I think, is where his concern fell, where if he just focused on the fact that he loved her and gave his all for that, then what he wanted out of that would have been given. And if it wasn't, then who cares? Like, that's what he wanted to give.
Right.
And
so
he
many
just
people
wasn't
get hung up on the what ifs of it, right?
Right. And I'm one of those myself. What if rules my life.
Right. Yeah, I'm with you. I think this scene also lends itself to the fact that the insight that Donald doesn't exist. When he's giving the story about high school and Charlie says it's like they were laughing at me, it's again a very identity moment where it almost seems like he created Charlie, not Donald. Pretend that Donald is the real person and Charlie was the creation. Somewhere, some receptacle to put away all of those doubts and fears.
Right.
He becomes... There's some cartoon that it makes me think of where that particular part of you is this little shriveled being that's hidden away, right?
Right. It makes me think a little bit. You've seen Silicon Valley, right?
Yeah.
So the scene. So you got the nerdy dude.
Yep.
And did you see? Have you seen them all?
Not all of them.
Okay. So have you seen the episode where he tries to get the deal from Microsoft? So he creates this character and talks on the phone to Microsoft.
No.
So he makes this character and he deepens his voice. He talks like a bro. He adds this strength to his character, right? But then, I don't know, something happens and he has to fire the character he made up in his head or whatever. And he had this strength with that character because it was a different guy. And he had this whole backstory in his head about the character. And then one of the other characters in the show was like, well, that was you. He's like, no, that was him. He's like, but it was you.
And that is why we have a show called Catfish now.
Oh, is it?
Isn't it?
I don't know.
People creating alternate personas so that they can achieve what they couldn't on their own.
Oh, okay, yeah. But yeah, no, again, and maybe that was this, and it almost, I mean, I like the way you looked at it, but it almost works in that way where he made this other character to have the strength. Like, I like your interpretation of it, where it's almost like if we envision Charlie as almost like the storeway for all the doubt and the fear, but it's in the other way, it's almost like Donald was that creation that he made because Donald wasn't him. So Donald was able to go out and be brave and be strong and not have to worry about the kickback from that because Donald wasn't real.
You know what it is? It's Tyler Durden. Fight Club.
Oh, yeah. No, I like that connection. That's good. Corey in the chat here says he goes, it's like when Joey was Chandler's assistant Joseph on Friends. Also, it's like my entire fucking life.
That's true. You really have taken that to a whole... I'm a little bit envious, the level. It's well done. That's true. So next episode will be Corey.
Well, we got the last clip.
No.
Oh,
I'm just saying that the next episode is going to be the movie that is Corey.
The movie that is Corey. Corey, we will watch Corey. And we'll talk about it.
I can't wait for the masturbation scenes.
They do seem to be a reoccurring theme. So this is the last line of the movie. It's Nicolas Cage.
What does that say about me? Because I've picked 3 of these movies, and they all seem to be relatively similar.
Well, the one I picked wasn't all that different.
No, that's true. That's true.
It was more comical, but they're brief but glorious. Corey, we love you. So anyway, so this is the last line in the movie. It's Nicolas Cage finally coming together. This is after the talk again with McKee. This is after his brother passed away. After that, the eye-opener conversation with the brother. After talking with Amelia. So this is the close all end all, and I think it's a great end of the movie.
I have to go right home. I know how to finish the script now. It ends with Kaufman driving home after his lunch with Amelia, thinking he knows how to finish the script. Shit, that's voiceover. McKee would not approve. How else can I show his thoughts? I don't know. Oh, who cares what McKee says? It feels right. Conclusive. I wonder who's gonna play me. Someone not too fat. I like that Gerard Depardieu, but can he not do the accent? Anyway, it's done, and that's something. So, Kaufman drives off from his encounter with Amelia, filled for the first time with hope. I like this. This is good.
So, Did you wonder why at the end of that movie, when that song starts to play, the flowers that they show after a movie about orchids aren't orchids?
I noticed it, but I didn't really wonder.
Those flowers are called Amelias.
Ah, okay. So the Amelia was the kind of the lost love.
Yeah, it was the crux of his redemption, I guess. The fact that he got the I love you back is what sparked the glimmer of hope and change within him. That's all he really needed, was a little bit of love.
Right.
Whether he got it or not. I mean, actually got it. He got it, you know.
Right. Did, when he did the whole, I wonder who will play me, do you, so he did the Gerard Depardieu, yeah. He's like, just don't drop just drop the accent.
Yeah.
I kind of wanted him to say, like, maybe Nicolas Cage. Just don't do the overacting.
I know. I was really hoping for a little meta moment like that.
Right.
But...
like the fourth wall breaking.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
So at the end of this film, yeah, you all of the things that he did not want to write into the screenplay, you end up getting. So I don't know. I don't know if it makes you like the movie any less that he spent that whole time trying to do one thing, and then it's almost, I didn't like it any less. I'm not looking at this as a con, but it's almost like it's just a movie about him cheapening his own idea, or at least finding out that, you know, maybe you need these things, or maybe or
maybe his own idea wasn't so cheap to begin with.
Right. So this is what it is. I think. Never mind everything that I just said. So he finds out that life is not so simple, right? Like, there is change and there is conflict, and you can't have a story like the guy told him. All of these things that he needed to add were already there.
Right. No, I like that. There's there are depth. Again, we use the onion reference. I use the onion reference. There are depth and layers to everything. It's just a matter of breaking the surface, and how many of those layers are you willing to pull back?
Right.
So
being brave enough to do so. I mean,
right. And
yeah,
there are usually tears involved.
Yeah, that's
just like the onion.
That. How deep do you want to dive? I guess.
Right. All the way to the core.
Do onions have cores?
I mean, there's a center. It's a spherical shape. There's a core. I mean, maybe not a physical core, but there's a center.
A pit.
There's no pit.
The pit of oniony despair.
Anyway. Yeah, so no, I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. I'm sure I'll probably end up watching it again at some point, just to kind of maybe notice things that I might have missed the first time through, because I'm sure there are several.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, and now knowing what I know about how, like, you know, Donald is fake, and he was a creation of Charlie Kaufman, and just picking up on all the little different things and little different mannerisms and things like that. But no, all in all, I enjoyed it, and I'm surprised, again, being a Nick Cage lover and that it's a Nick Cage movie. I'm very surprised I had never seen it before.
I will culture you, sir. So, given your love for Brian Cox's character, can I make a suggestion for next week's movie?
By all means.
The Network.
The Network. What do we know about The Network?
The Network is an excellent film. It's a 70s movie.
Ah, we're going back.
It's about an anchorman who basically says fuck it and tells things like it is on the air. I think that you would really appreciate it, and I think it's worth a watch.
It is a 70s movie?
I believe so.
Then it's not called The Network.
Might just be Network.
Let's check out just Network. 1976, Network. Starring Faye Dunaway.
Yep.
William Holden, Peter Finch, Robert Duvall. Wesley, just Network, no article. Ned Beatty. And Brian Cox is in this?
Is he?
I don't believe so.
No, I don't think he's in this. I think this is just the character that he portrayed in this movie. The main character is very much like that in this movie.
But either way, it's a great cast. I mean, yeah, I'm definitely down. Is it streaming anywhere?
Well, if it's not, I will fucking buy it for you.
No, we will watch on Amazon.
It's $4.99 on Amazon.
Oh, yeah. So it's an old movie, so it's really cheap. All right. So, yeah. So there we go. Next week, we will watch Network, again, featuring Faye Dunaway, William Holden, Peter Finch, Robert Duvall, and several others. So the Newsroom on
Yeah.
HBO owes a lot to the network.
Yeah.
Or network.
I agree.
Cool. Well, I think that'll do it for this episode.
I think so. I really need to pee.
I gotta pee.
Probably should do that too.
We should do Forrest Gump at some point. So again, we are 4 episodes into this. Obviously, each episode seems to have its own kind of flavor. There are things we add, things we take away. So for those that are listening, especially those that listen live, we very much appreciate you guys hanging out with us and kind of indulging us and indulging our show. I think this is the show. I mean, we are a month into it now, which is crazy, and I'm thoroughly enjoying it so far. The movies that I haven't, other than American History X. Well, I guess yeah. So the first 2 I had seen. Now these 2 I haven't seen, and I'm looking forward to discovering more movies, and then also going back and watching movies that I've seen before and watching them with a more analytical eye. So I'm having a good time.
Good.
It's a cool show.
I'm enjoying it.
Me too. So if you, if you enjoy Movie Busters and want to help support Movie Busters and the studio, please consider going to patreon.com/IG Studios. It helps support, the upload hosting fees, website fees, things like that. It helps us be able to focus more on upgrading the studio and adding more content and devoting a little bit more time to things like this. And we thoroughly enjoy it. So if you enjoy the content, we would very much appreciate it if you do that. A big thank you to everyone who hung out with us in the live chat room and participated. If you are listening to this in podcast form and you would like to watch live, you can watch it live on Twitch at twitch.tv/InkedGeekStudios. And we record it live on Sunday nights at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. So again, our movie for next week will be Network. So definitely tune in and check that out as well. If you have anything to say about Adaptation or any of the other movies that we have done so far, whether it be American Beauty, American History X, or Dirty Grandpa, which doesn't seem to fit in the list at the moment. Currently, we got to add some more comedies.
We will.
But if you have anything to say about any of those movies or are critiquing of them, feel free to email us at moviebusterspodcast@gmail.com. If you are into indie video games, check out Indie Case Files tomorrow night live at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time with myself and Amy Frost. We will be talking about and reviewing Guacamelee, the Super Turbo Championship Edition, which is a ridiculously fun game.
It's a mouthful.
Yeah, it is. And then all of our other shows return next week. We've got All Geeked Up at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Friday. Mind of a Geek returns with episode 7 of season 4 at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Friday with special guest Brian Ibbett on that episode of Coverville and TMS fame. He also does soundography with past Mind of a Geek guest Hammond Chamberlain. So that should be a great episode. I'm very excited to have Brian on. I got to meet him at Nerdtacular back in July, and he is a cool dude. So that'll be fun to sit down with him and pick his brain for a little while. But I think that is going to do it for this week. I see trees. Good. We'll just start right back where we started. Or end right back where we started.
With seagulls?
Fucking seagulls, dude. Fucking seagulls. No, I am delaying because I actually used the iPad on the episode this week. So I didn't have my soundboard pulled up. And now I have my soundboard pulled up. So, again, thank you to our live chat room. You guys rock. For Brandon, for myself, and for the rest of Inked Geek Studios, thank you all very much for listening, and we will see you next week.
Good morning, Vietnam!
I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
I feel the need for speed.
Roads? Where we're going, we don't need roads.
Snakes. Why did it have to be snakes?
Badgers? We don't need no badgers. I don't have to show you any stinking badgers.
You've been listening to an Inked Geek Studios podcast. For this and other great shows, go to inkedgeekstudios.com.